So now let's look at a good example of a student that was able to pull this off well. So as you see here, this is an example of a good paragraph. Now let's take some visual notes. Number one, you should notice, look at the length of this paragraph, right? It's almost an entire page double spaced. It is just under 250 words. Now that's not saying that every single one of you needs to write a paragraph this long, but it should come close. We should be looking at about 200 words a paragraph, depending on what grade you're in. I mean, this specific person was in about 11th or 12th grade when they wrote this. Now, it's color coordinated. Green refers to a topic sentence, orange refers to any evidence that they use, and yellow refers to analysis, while the blue is just their concluding sentence. So notice they have all of that. They have the T. They have their topic sentence, then they have their evidence, then they have their analysis. Now, what this person could have done is include a little bit more evidence down below and kind of vary up these colors a little bit. Now again, I color coordinated this, but the idea is this is a lot of analysis to have with no additional evidence. And so this whole long paragraph does only have one supporting quote, so I would have liked something else, but this is still a fantastic paragraph. So look at the length and look at the structure. What is there more of? Well, clearly there's more of the analysis. Too often this is kind of flipped, where students have more of the orange and less of the yellow. And that's where they fall into plot summary of just summarizing what's happening in their book, sequence of events, and not analyzing it or telling me why are they talking about this stuff. So let's take a look. Their topic sentence, Mary Shelley also uses structural elements to tie in her book with Prometheus. Now, it's not a mind-blowing topic sentence, but it gets the job done. It's short, sweet, it is to the point, it is very direct, and I know what this person's going to be proving. I know that she's proving that Mary Shelley, specifically in Frankenstein, uses structural elements, which is a part of literary theory, to tie in Frankenstein with the Prometheus myth. Now, she does use a transitionary word also to connect back to her previous paragraph, which you guys don't see, but that's a pretty decent topic sentence. I know what this paragraph is going to be about without even reading it. And ultimately, that's a good gauge for you guys. Look at your body paragraph. Look at the first sentence. Does it tell you exactly what you're proving in that paragraph? So then she goes on, the evidence that she uses. Ann K. Miller explains that, and then she quotes. Now notice what she does. All of this yellow is her explaining and analyzing the quote and how it relates, or the significance, to her topic sentence. She doesn't just quote dump and say, "Oh, I'm done." No, she's talking about what it means. She's giving me this significance, and that's what you need to do in your paragraphs. So here's some takeaways from that good essay. Number one, it's a full analysis. You have many sentences there that were colored in yellow, which means that this student is doing more of her own words and her own interpretation and her analysis than just finding other people's information. Again, she did find one piece of evidence and she incorporated it, but most of it was her own work and her own ideas. And that's what you're doing in your paragraphs. Yes, you take other people's ideas, but you got to make them your own by connecting them together. So she had a full analysis. She also had a very direct topic sentence. Could it have been rephrased to be a little bit better? Sure, but it was pretty darn good. Then she also had relevant evidence. The quote that she picked was directly related to her argument, to her topic sentence, and to her thesis. She didn't just pick a quote for a quote's sake. She didn't just pick something to further a plot summary. And lastly, the length was pretty good. It was about a full page for this paragraph, maybe even a little bit too long, but ultimately it was roughly 250 words. This was 10 plus sentences. This was enough information to throw in there to support her idea. Because if you don't have enough information, who's going to take your idea seriously? So now that we looked at a good example, I want to take a look at one that's not so good. So here you see a few things. Now, they do have a topic sentence, but I colored this one in a darker green to show you that there are some issues. He says, in literature, stories are typically comprised of a male hero and a female character being rescued, although in some rare occasions, we see the woman become the heroic fighting force that saves someone/something in the story. It's very wordy, it's a little confusing, there is some grammatical issues which Google itself is trying to alert the student to say, you should fix right around here. You see the blue squiggly lines. They're using personal pronouns which they shouldn't in an academic paper, But ultimately, there is still evidence that this is a topic sentence with an argument, because really the argument's right here. In rare occasions, there's a woman that becomes the heroic fighting force. So there's this comparison being made. Typically, stories are one way with the male hero, female gets saved, but seems like in some occasions it's switched. That's actually a pretty good idea. However, look at the rest of the paragraph. There's really no analysis. There's some evidence, and the evidence, though, is very vague, right? It says, we always see the stereotype of women being the weak creatures that need to be saved. Where is he getting that from? I don't know. It's just a general statement, which sometimes can be evidence if it's common knowledge, but here it's not very robust. And the males being the strong fighting, so on and so forth. And you see more vague evidence there. Now, the rest isn't even colored in because it's not analysis, and it's also not evidence. Right here, why do stories become portrayed in this manner? You don't need a rhetorical question there. And there are many other terms created for the use to describe a manly man, such as macho, manful, and chivalrous. It doesn't even fit in with this paragraph. And ultimately, if his argument was that in rare occasions, the woman is actually the heroic fighting force that saves someone in the story, he doesn't prove that. He says, female characters in stories are typically illustrated as feeble, submissive, blah, blah, blah. Does that show the second half of this topic sentence? No, it doesn't prove that at all. What about the terms to describe men? Nope, that doesn't prove it either. What about the people commonly referred to the term manly? Nope, that doesn't prove it either. What about the stereotype of women, once again, being the weak creatures? Nope, that doesn't prove it either. It might prove parts of the first part of the first half of the topic sentence, but it definitely doesn't do the second. So ultimately, there's some work that needs to be done in this paragraph. So what are some takeaways from that bad example? Well, it's a confusing topic sentence. It doesn't seem as direct, and it doesn't seem like it knows where this argument wants to go. Plus, there's vague evidence that's being used. It's very generic. It's not specific enough. It's not taken from an actual source or a book. It's just more general knowledge without it being substantiated. And it doesn't support the topic sentence, right? So look at your body paragraph, look at your topic sentence, and ask, does everything that come after support that topic sentence? If it doesn't, you need to throw it out. And then lastly, it's too small. There's really not much information there. Plus, if you take into account that a lot of the information is vague and it's not specific enough, you don't have a very good paragraph. In fact, that entire paragraph needs to be scrapped and start over. Right? So it's always better to find your evidence that supports the topic sentence and then have a bunch of analysis in there. I'd rather you have more than enough information than less than enough. So ultimately, in conclusion, you must have a full paragraph that directly supports the topic sentence, which itself supports the thesis statement, and then you need to make sure that you connect all paragraphs together with transitionary words and phrases. Because again, all of these paragraphs, they're not isolated. They're working together as a family. So one paragraph needs to flow into the next paragraph, which means your concluding sentence should often set up your next paragraph. And then your next paragraph needs to use some transitionary words, even if they're simple like next or additionally, right? You could get more sophisticated over time, but you need something that tells me that you're connecting your ideas together and that they're related and not isolated. So that is ultimately how you write an effective body paragraph.